The plane dropped, tilted sideways, and rose up hard. Coffee flew out of the cup in Georgia Charles Dixon's hand, landing on the front of her white shirt. Damn! She set the cup back onto the tray and dabbed at the stain with a napkin. The plane took another dive, and she put the lid on the cup and secured it in the slotted tray. The seatbelt light bonged and flashed as the PA system came to life. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some air turbulence. Please remain in your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Thank you. Georgia glanced nervously at her husband in the seat beside her as she engaged the seatbelt. She knew turbulence was a natural phenomenon, and with all the air miles she'd clocked, she should be used to it. Fat chance. Sean took a hold of her hand and squeezed it. Relax. It's nothing to worry about. His soft, soothing voice made her feel better. She looked through the window and saw nothing but forests below. They were somewhere over Northern California. Soon they'd be landing in Los Angeles. Her thoughts focused on their trip. Sean would remain in LA for 3 days on movie business. She was catching a connecting flight to Houston, Texas, to appear as a guest speaker at a writers' convention. She had come to enjoy speaking at events. They brought her to places she would never have visited and introduced her to many interesting people. But lately they'd become a chore. The plane shuddered and shook as they hit another air pocket. Ugh! Georgia sucked in her breath, her body tensing against the back of the seat. Sean leaned closer to her and tightened his grip on her hand. Are you okay? Yes, of course. I'm being silly. I've never been fond of flying, but since I've become a parent, I'm more aware of my mortality. I think parenthood does that to a lot of people, especially mothers. It doesn't help knowing the girls were upset we left them with Grams. Georgia thought about her daughters, Kayla and Shelby. They'd just celebrated their 9th birthday. Sean loosened his grip on her hand. It's the first time that we left them without one of us being there. Kayla was her birth daughter from a previous marriage. Shelby was Kayla's half-sister. The girls were born a couple of weeks apart, the result of her ex-husband's affair during his marriage to Georgia. Both women became pregnant around the same time. Georgia adopted Shelby when her ex-husband and his second wife had both died only months apart. 2.5 years ago, Georgia married Sean, and he adopted the girls as his own. They were a family. Georgia sighed. I knew Shelby might be upset with both of us away, but it's been 4 years since she lost her birth parents. We can't keep her in a cocoon forever, hon. Sooner or later, she needs to accept that we're not going anywhere. You're right. I've been thinking that with the girls in school full-time, I'd like to get involved with something else part-time. Like what? Sean asked. Georgia laughed, which turned into a snort. I haven't a clue, but I'm thinking this will be my last speaking engagement to do with my past and my books. I thought you loved all of this. You've kept it pretty low-key since the girls started school. I do love it, but I want to do something more meaningful. I'm tired of talking about me. That I understand, but what you've been doing has inspired other people. Georgia nodded her head. I suppose. I guess I'm bored and I need a new challenge. My life needs to move forward as well. Then you must find one. Not sure how. Sean brushed her hair out of her eyes and kissed the tip of her nose. Then let it find you. When it does, you'll know. The turbulence stopped and the rest of the flight was without incident. Georgia watched as they flew out to sea and changed their approach back to the coast. 10 minutes later, they departed from the plane at LAX and headed to the ticket counter to check Georgia in for her connecting flight to Houston. Sean walked her to the security checkpoint. Call me when you're settled into the hotel. I will. Georgia slipped her arms around his waist and placed her head on his chest. He held her tight and whispered, I love you. She lifted her head and looked into his eyes. I love you too.